The controllers are some of the most reliable brawlers in the game. Tied with the damage dealers, they have the most brawlers in their category with 18 brawlers in total. But in today's video, I'm going to be ranking every controller in the game from worst to best based off how reliable they are in the meta, and of course a little bit of my opinion. Anyways, at number 18 is Ems. Ems is by far the worst controller in the game, and she's very similar to Edgar in the meta. She's pretty strong at lower ranks since most players don't really know how to counter her high damage. But at mid to high ranks, considering the current aggressive meta, she's very useless even in game modes that she'd normally be good at. Her hypercharge is pretty good, but let's be honest, it got power crept really fast. At number 17 is Jessie. Jessie is a lot better than Ems, but she's a lot less usable in many other game modes besides Heist and Hot Zone. Even in Heist, Scrappy gets destroyed pretty fast since no one really wants to deal with it cause it's pretty annoying. At number 16 is Chuck. Chuck's hypercharge just released and it's a huge disappointment. The concept of the hypercharge makes no sense. Most people play Chuck in Heist and having unlimited range is completely pointless. The Heist map isn't even that long, and with good placement you'd never even need to change where you place your poles. The increased damage is decent and the smoke clouds can be useful, but the main thing about the hypercharge is completely useless. Besides the hypercharge, Chuck is practically useless everywhere besides Heist, Hot Zone, and maybe Gem Grab. At number 15 is Gale. Gale really fell off and he's just not as good as he used to be a few months ago. Unlike the other brawlers I've mentioned so far on the list, Gale isn't completely useless. He's actually a pretty reliable counter to pretty aggressive brawlers, especially while drafting, but he's still too situational to be very useful. At number 14 is Willow. Willow is still in the same position as before because of her incredibly lackluster hypercharge. She's still pretty viable because she does a good amount of damage and her super can be used pretty well, but it doesn't really make her that useful in the meta. At number 13 is Penny. Penny is still useful in control focused game modes, but she can be countered pretty hard by a good amount of the top brawlers. Her hypercharge is pretty strong and it's a really big reason why she's at number 13. At number 12 is Meeple. Meeple does a good amount of damage, but he has two major issues. His reload speed is pretty bad and he doesn't have a hypercharge yet, which really isn't good in this meta. He did receive a buff recently, so I guess he's not that bad, and he also does a decent amount of damage. At number 11 is Squeak. Squeak is pretty good, but he has one major flaw. In an aggressive meta, he doesn't deal enough damage. He's still pretty good in control focused game modes and his hypercharge is very solid. At number 10 is Otis. Otis is actually pretty decent. His ability to silence enemies is very reliable and it's pretty overpowered. His hypercharge is also very good as it can completely shut down an aggressive push from the enemy. He also does a decent amount of damage, which is pretty good too. At number 9 is Sandy. Sandy is incredibly average. He's good at controlling a large amount of area with his super and he supports his team really well. He also does a good amount of damage and his hypercharge is very good. At number 8 is Bo. Bo is really good at controlling area, especially with his hypercharge. He also does an insane amount of damage and he's very versatile because of it. He does have his issues though. Faster brawlers like assassins can easily avoid Bo's mines, making him vulnerable while drafting. At number 7 is Mr. P. After a few nerfs, Mr. P is finally a lot less insane. He's still really strong and very good, but there are a lot of aggro brawlers that can easily take care of Mr. P, which makes him a lot less reliable in the meta. Still, his hypercharge is very much a threat and it's one of the best in the game. At number 6 is Charlie. Charlie had surprisingly made a comeback with her recent range buff, but that really didn't last long because she got nerfed like a week later. She's still a very solid tank counter and her increased range makes her a lot more versatile, which is good because she's been bad for a while. At number 5 is Lou. Lou is the definitive controller. In terms of reliability, Lou has the best super in the game for a controller. Even his ability to stun enemies with his main attack is incredibly useful and makes Lou a very effective counter to tanks and assassins. Even his hypercharge is very strong, making Lou a very good brawler overall. At number 4 is Gene. Gene is definitely the most consistent brawler on the list. His area control is pretty good and his super is one of the strongest in the game. His only downside is his pretty bad hypercharge, but that doesn't really affect him too much. At number 3 is Griff. Griff is easily the highest damaging brawler in this category and he probably fits better as a damage dealer, but he does control a good amount of area. His hypercharge has really helped him lately, being able to easily take out multiple people with his high amount of damage. Personally, he's my favorite controller in the game and he's actually pretty good. At number 2 is Finks. On release, I never really saw Finks as one of the best brawlers in the game, but recently Finks has been able to counter a lot of the best brawlers in the game in the current meta, which is why he'd probably be at number 1 if he had a hypercharge. Anyways, at number 1 is Amber. Amber has been really strong ever since she got that hypercharge. She's always been pretty good and she might always be pretty good because of her hypercharge. Her high damage and her large area control paired with her relatively low skill ceiling makes her one of the best brawlers in the game. Anyways, that was every controller controller ranked from worst to best. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.